Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. If you are registered in one particular party or another, I hope that you went to vote yesterday. While I was on my way to the poll, I passed a neighbor who was coming from the poll, and this neighbor was wearing an interesting t-shirt. It simply said, "You can't tell me what to do," in big letters on the front. And it seemed to me like the adult equivalent of saying, "You're not the boss of me," like we sometimes hear children saying, or like we sometimes want to say ourselves. And I was reflecting that it was an interesting choice of t-shirt to wear to voting, and maybe this neighbor gave no thought to that at all, but I suspect people usually think through those things. And it got me to thinking about how much we are trying to legislate morality in our country. And it is happening on both sides of the aisle. And I certainly am one who believe that legislation is important, that there are people who need and deserve protection that they have not historically been given. But I also think that simply trying to legislate our way out of many of the social conflicts that we are experiencing now is never going to work. And that's where I think the church has a role to play. The texts that I'm preaching on this coming Sunday are the lectionary, and we're continuing in John's Gospel, and we're also continuing in 1 John. And the section of 1 John that we'll be reading on Sunday uses the word abide a whole bunch of times, as does the gospel, the section of John 15. But in the section of 1 John that we're reading in chapter 4 is the verse, "God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them." And that word abide is in the text so many times that it almost stops having meaning. You know, you have a word that you repeat over and over again, and you're like, wait a second, that just sounds weird. But in today, the word abide often means to, act in accordance with, to accept something like a legal decision, or it means to tolerate or not tolerate. If you say, "God, I can't abide that," but the biblical way of thinking about abiding is different. In the Greek, it's thinking about what it looks like to be present to someone, to dwell with someone. And I think that's a gift the church has to offer, and that Christ's disciples have that to offer to the world. That willingness to dwell with, be present to, abide with people who are different than us. And it's something that you have to be intentional about. You might be thinking, this is one of Kim's, top 5 sermons that she likes to preach. And it's true, because I think it's so crucial to who we are as a people and a community and a world. It's not something I feel like I'm particularly good at seeking out. When I'm with people face to face, one-on-one, who are different from me, I am able to engage, but they are not situations that I seek out, and I think that's unfortunate. And I know that there are people in this congregation who have purposely made friends with their neighbors despite the political signs in the front yard. I know there are people in this congregation who have led us in having difficult conversations about how we are present to people who think differently. And I'm grateful for that. And I want to encourage that for each of us, that we are willing to seek out those one-on-one conversations, because I really think it's in those relationships and in that dwelling together that the world, and particularly our country, is going to be changed. It's not going to happen any other way. So I'm trying to remind myself of this too, as I look to moving out to Ohio and to living in a much more conservative area and being among people who by and large will think differently than I think. And so it's on my heart a lot right now, this willingness and ability to abide. So I hope that it's something that you're thinking about too, especially as we face in the fall what probably is going to be a very divisive election. But we can do something about that in the way that we live our lives and seek to abide with other people. Thanks for listening today. Bye.